What is rich? Is it to be able to have whatever you want, perhaps? I once asked my mother to buy me something, and she said, "Oh, you have such expensive taste. You're gonna need to be rich." And I was suddenly horrified. Maybe it was the idea that I would have to be anything. I don't think she meant it this way. I think that's the problem with people and communication. We should stop and ask the people, what do you mean with this statement? But I didn't. I just thought how horrible. I'll have to be rich. And in a strange way, I had a flash of enlightenment. I realized if I need nothing, then I will not need to be anything. I can just be whatever I am. I thank you for being here this week. I love you all. God bless and welcome. It's kind of late in the evening. The theme of this winter has been a hot stove and the door open, no matter what the temperature. It's how I like it. Fresh air blending with a good heat. It's been a mild winter. I think we'll have one last hoorah. There's an expression where I live, the old timers, in like a lamb, out like a lion, and that's definitely this year. So I was watching a YouTube video. Well, I haven't watched it all. I thought we would have a look together. This channel went and did some boots on the ground in Detroit, and this thing was an apartment building with a name. I showed you in a past video my old apartment complex in Salt Lake City, and it was called the Bigelow. This thing is called the Loretto, almost 20,000 square feet, a little castle, built in 1928 and abandoned since 2007, just sitting in limbo. A lot of these buildings, similar with Salt Lake City, it's like their dream is to build condos everywhere, just borging the people out. And people really are the Borg today. I mean, it's amazing how in 15 years they've turned the people into the Borg. Old Gene was a true visionary. Vision that there would be a people just assimilate pure consumption and mindless, essentially becoming technology, like a hybrid. And I don't know what you needed going back to what we need before technology. I mean, before computers and computer phones. Now everything revolves around the computer. We're a strange society. I mean, you can see why the modern cube condo is the designated house. It's like a feedlot. You just want it to be exactly what it needs to be. I mean, I don't. I would want to give my livestock as much as I could give them. But everybody runs the farm differently. This is a building in 1928. Who was running the farm? Now, of course, I think this building is older than 1928. And proof that it's out of place, out of time, is the fact that it's sitting abandoned, really not knowing what to do with it. It's just a big problem for the current paradigm in a culture that really doesn't value art like it used to. And this is wasteful in the modern paradigm. But for some reason, people are not flocking to Detroit the way they are Salt Lake City. And we have a lot of preservation here. And what do they say about this building? Here on historicdetroit.org, the Loretto apartment building is located in the Dexter-Linwood neighborhood. The building is a stunning combination of Art Deco, Spanish Revival, and Moorish styles. Okay, just throwing everything at it. It was designed by the firm Weed, Mayer, and Gay. Can I say that? Sadly, the neighborhood, once strong Jewish and gay, has declined over the years. It's currently owned by the Detroit Land Bank Authority, really in limbo. And here's an old picture they offer. I hope this isn't it. And a look at some of the brickwork. Very complex, super skilled, not seeming like an apartment building. Why? Really having these cathedral elements. It seems like there may have been a window here and now they've put a board in its place. It reminds me of most of the Mormon churches, and even the Mormon temple, has a big board on it where a window should be. I'll try to flash a picture of that. Here again, this looks like modern brickwork and a cheap modern window frame and a board. And here again, we can see the era, clear signs of these master brick masons. And pretty much any city in America will have buildings like this. And this is actually one of my favorite trees. Call it the jungle tree. And really interesting, this clay tile, something I'm used to seeing in Arizona in the Southwest, and a little look at the inside in really rough shape. And really you can't tell, but it's really massive. And we'll have another quick look at this guy's video, and he shows us some other apartment buildings with these Moorish flares. This one looking very castle-like. But were they simply apartments of the old world? Or were they more like factories? Or have a completely different function? Be more of a machine and not have all these glass windows, but rather these being ventilation, helping to cool the machine. Now clearly with cathedrals this may be the case. We can often see at the top of cathedrals venting port, and even many domed buildings having an open section at the top. Okay, part 2. What are we looking at here? What is this? Again, completely Borg-like, scarring the earth. What reason? Mining? Farming? Honestly, I don't even know where we are. Where are we? Where in the hell are we? I mean, this is like Peruvian stuff going on here. Just out of control. I'll put a pin here. Oops, that was supposed to be a question mark. But anyway, where are we and what is all of this? This is just stupid. This should be alarming. And nothing is alarming anymore. They can fly drones all over. Fires can burn neighborhoods by the ocean. White women can run for office as black, and men can claim to be women, or vice versa. And maybe that's just fine if it would apply across the board. If people would be free in all regards. Free to say whatever they want. Absolute freedom. I'm totally down with that. Somebody once called into the Art Bell show and said he identified as a horse. Talked about his experience as a horse, and I was okay with that. I mean, I would explore this concept in all directions. I like the idea of identifying as nothing. After all, everything is disposable. Everything has a shelf life, except the consciousness flows through everything. The consciousness that can be aware of the disposable nature. The consciousness is like a shapeshifter, but the shape begins to take on its own consciousness. And there you have an internal battle. So are we free to think, am I free to state that this is not modern, but rather something left over from a past civilization? I don't know. And somebody has surveyed all of this. Unbelievable surveying job. Either this is the foundation for a city, or was once a city. Now completely cooked out. We can see the major interstates and the smaller roads. Corner points would be used as airports. There's just too much out here. There's no need for all of this. And if you recall, along major interstates, there's usually these points where water dumps in. In Salt Lake, you have such a point at about 400 west and 2100 south. Let me show you real quick. So right down here, where these highways intersect, I-80 and I-15, this is called the Spaghetti Bowl. And basically all of these ramps made to carry vehicles also act as water slides when it rains or snows. All of this water has to go somewhere. It can't just dump onto the train tracks here or into the Home Depot. No, it's part of the engineering of these roads. Massive undertaking. These roads span hundreds of feet in the air. on giant concrete and steel pillars. But I digress. Here is what I'm talking about. Giant ponds to collect the water. Now let's go back to our spot, and I still haven't told you where we are. And we see such a thing. A pond and this grid that just goes on and on. And as most of you know, I live in oil field country and farming. And these aren't oil field roads. These are much better than oil field road. They're perfect. And we see at the intersecting points a lot of these water features. And what looks like the footprint of buildings now obliterated and overgrown. Maybe only 150 years of growth. And yet the roads still prevail. So where are we? Maybe somebody knows. We are in, or just out of, Ranchitos Las Lomas. And what does this have in common with the rest of this video? This is just out of a little town called Loreto. And Loreto is the building that we started off this video with. So let's have a little look at something else. This is a picture of the cats that I've been feeding on the river. The kittens are about 9 weeks old now. There's 1 and 2, and their mom is right here. I'm currently in trouble. I don't know if you'd call it that, but the county is threatening something if I don't do something. I built my house without a permit, but you're allowed to build a structure under 200 square feet with no permit. And even though my newest house is bigger than 200 square feet, it technically is 2 structures with independent structural integrity. I mean, it's essentially 2 small buildings pieced together. And I think that's their fear. If you built too large and didn't know what you were doing, your roof could collapse. But again, I knew the code, and everything I've done has pretty much been within the code. My first house was just a camp trailer. And then I built a 10 by 10 on one side of it, and then a 16 by 8 on the other side. My chicken coop is essentially 8 by 8, and just to appease them, and I feel to be honorable, I submitted an application for a building permit. And essentially we'll have to find some kind of middle ground. I think they wanted to comply as a residence so they can increase my taxes, and that's fine. It will be a peace of mind to have it behind me and legitimize the structure, but it has occupied more time than I would have liked to devote. I mean, after all, I'm just wanting to live on my land in peace. Nothing fancy. I think it is my rights, all of ours. Now, if I want to sell it as a house, then I think it should conform. But I can't do that. I don't have an address. It doesn't have a certificate of occupancy. So it couldn't be sold as a house, only as land. I think that should be adequate. But it is my fault. I went through a process to subdivide 1 acre off of my property. And it appears that that has been approved. And it also appears that I've drawn attention by doing this. And that's okay. Again, like I said, it will be nice to legitimize this little cabin. And I also plan on selling this acre. I'm allowed to subdivide 1 acre per year. And the first one is pretty much ready. They sent me 2 letters. One said the subdivision has been approved. And then I opened the second letter, and it said contact the building authority immediately. And I've done that. It's funny how hard they make it. It's no wonder there's so much homelessness. The old me would feel like I'm in danger of becoming homeless. But for some reason, I'm not. For some reason, I believe that we're all living in a dream, and we all control this dream, for better or for worse. In fact, I think we have created our hardships to help wake us up, become conscious in the dream. This gray cat is called Teddy Bear. I call her Ted. And this one is called Leela. Leela Canyon. I just call her Lee. Lee and Ted. So let's go back to Mexico. What is all of this? Who would do this. It amazes me that we don't even know what's going on. I mean, I've looked at a lot, Google anomalies, and this is next level. I mean, just everything, every piece of land has been scarred in this way. Would anybody say that this is normal? This has a similar pattern that we see in Paris. It's just perfect. These look like foundations where giant hive-like building complexes would have been. And who do you turn to? Who is the authority on such things? Who would you ask? Patterns within patterns. And again, all around this city. And the city is massive in its own right. Super dense. Going back to codes, it looks like they have 0 setbacks. I mean, you can build a house right up to the next one. Here's a great example. Super shanty style here. I mean, do you even have to buy a lot here? But anyway, on this perfect circuit board, and it's everything just built on top of the old over and over again. So many clues, and yet most people are uninterested, even if shown. And this town is right on the border of Mexico and Texas. So what's interesting is that we can actually explore these. Any of you living in Texas, this is in your backyard. Pretty awesome. Pretty unbelievable. So I guess that's it for tonight. I hope you've enjoyed today's exploration. I thank you for joining me. Do have a blessed day. God bless, and I love you all.